Welcome back. Now, customer expectations of today are evolving, and businesses must change the rules of engagement to stay ahead of the game.
Well, this is something a lot easier said than done. Our next guest has taken up the challenge. She's developed a model that she says will help companies build strong and lasting relationships with their clients.
It's all in her new book of FIREFLY, Consultative Engagement. Let's welcome author Regina Chua, who goes by the title of Customer Engagement Strategist. It's going to look good on anyone's business card, I'm sure. Regina, first let's get started. It's called FIREFLY, but I've noticed there's dots in between each letter, so I'm guessing that means something.
Absolutely. So this FIREFLY talks about the process of engagement. It's something that we take for granted. It's intuitive, but what we want to do is to bring out that process into a systematic dialogue to help people improve the way they dialogue.
Okay, so what does FIREFLY stand for then?
So very quickly, it's two words. It's fire and fly. Fire, first you need to flex. You need to identify what the person is like and adjust to their style. I, impress. What's the impression you give? R, rapport. How do you build rapport? And that follows with engage. You need to find out about what the person wants, what the person needs. So that's fire. Once you're into that, then the natural thing is fly with the conversation. How do you flow with the pitch? How do you align to their needs? And then L, how do you leverage objections, disagreements, because there will be differences. And then finally, Y, how do you yield to a win-win outcome? So it's FIREFLY, a flow.
It almost sounds like good dating advice. But I guess that's the whole idea, right? Is to build a good relationship with your customer.
Yes, it is through dialogue. Yeah, through dialogue.
Well, a lot of elements there, and you go into detail into your book. But I guess the core of it is, well, one main idea that you've put across in the book is that credibility is so important, isn't it? Do you think it is more so these days when you're dealing with customers?
Yes, it is. Credibility undergirds trust. And when you talk to consumers, some people may say customers are demanding, but if you put yourself in the shoes of any customer, the amount of information out there, it's massive, isn't it? You get so much, and you've got so much, and you're like, so what do I do with this? You know, decision-making becomes so complex. And so credibility is about connecting with someone and building that trust dialogue within the dimension of speed, because people make decisions way faster than they ever did before with too much information, and to reduce what I call post-decision regret, if you heard of that. You know, people make decisions and then they come back and they're like, whoa, did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
Was it right?
Yeah.
And that is in part due to the haste with which you were just mentioning people make these decisions, though. So is that something that you advocate, that people should take more time to make decisions?
Well, I think the speed of decision-making is part and parcel of life today, and that's it. So in the dialogue of engaging with your customers, you've got to address that it's a time-sensitive conversation. You don't have the luxury for the entire time to communicate about what you're about, but you've got to dive into the customer's life. What's contextual for him, what's relevant, and so how do you differentiate your solution or your offer for him?
You mentioned speed, but what else has changed in terms of customer expectations over the past 10 years?
What we're beginning to see is what we say, customers want more. I want more. So if you want to communicate with me, if you want to sell me something, you got to show me the value. And it's value from my point of view. It's how I see value. It's not just your brand ads, it's not your product alone, but look, what's in it for me? So that's one. And number two, when customers expect, they would have lots of questions because they've got social media, they've got exposure. So expect the customer to be... Yeah, and they're more multi-dimensional. So can you imagine if you were to follow your script to say, okay, this is the book, this is how we serve the customer, this is what they're meant to ask, this is what they're meant to respond, you're going to get stuck.
I mean, if you take travel destinations, for example, customers go there kind of knowing what to expect because they've read hundreds of reviews. So they're armed with that knowledge before they make their selection these days. That's a major change, isn't it, in the industries?
That's right. So if we go on a holiday, you would turn to TripAdvisor. You would check out the web and what did they say, when is the right time to go. And before you make that decision, if you were to go to a travel agency, you would ask very clear questions. I read it here. Why is it priced like that? Yeah, that's a very big question. And one of the important things, if you cannot dialogue to substantiate why you're priced like that, you will experience what I call the commodity curse. You're not worth that value. Whether you're nobody's spared this. It's not just the mass products. Even in the more expensive brands, people still ask, Why? Why so? Why this price? And then you get stuck.
Does it also come into people managing expectations becomes an almost bigger deal now? You can't just sort of hope to get away with promising something and then not delivering, because now there's like so many avenues for customers to come back at you through social media, and if whatever experience they've had, they're more willing to share it now, and there's more avenues to share it now as well.
Yes, and that's right. So the voice of the customer speaks. And would one rather not have the customer tell us right up front in the dialogue, what do you think, why yes, why no, rather than have that passive customer who says, okay, fine. And guess what? He goes back and boom, within 10 seconds, he's on his phone writing all these comments. So you've got to make use of the dialogue. You've got to be intentional. You've got to want to engage with during the dialogue and make the best out of that experience.
Okay, let's turn to a specific example in your book. You raise a case study, a senior sales manager named Raymond, who's able to create a connection with any customer he's dealing with. What's he doing right?
Right. So Raymond, this is a real person that we actually had worked with in one of our consults. And one of the things that Raymond was doing well is, you know, that bit where we talked about FIRE, F-I-R-E. He had that basic right. What he did was he was very focused on people that he met. First few encounters, let me find out what you're like. And, you know, he was all set, he's prepared. And finally, what he did really well, does uniquely well, was his ability to build rapport. So what I had in this book was this definition of rapport. We found out over 11 years working on this methodology is, interestingly, there are two kinds of rapport, casual and credible. So casual rapport is something probably we're more familiar in the West. It's, hi, how's your weekend? You know, were you out, you know, at the ball game? Did you have a good time? That's casual. And what we noticed for some customers, it may be a little bit too much too early, because you don't even know me, so why are you asking so much? Then you move on to credible rapport. And that's still rapport building, it's still small talk, but it's small talk about the product itself. It's small talk about, you know, talking shop. It's like, so what's interesting about your product? Tell me about, you know, what the trends are, what are women buying these days, or what are the popular telecom plans that people are getting. And when you build that, you break the ice. Raymond does an exceptionally good job of that. So that's FIR before he engages.
And I suppose the value is knowing when to use what. And what's going to work for your individual customer.
You're right, yeah.
Now, we have an article that appeared in the Today paper yesterday talking about reaching out and engaging your customers. I got a copy of it here. It was actually about an education plan. It says, breaking news, child trapped under 4 tons a truck. Then it says, parents, imagine if it was your child, what would you do to save him? And they answer, everything it takes, obviously. But it's about preparing children for education. So they're almost using scare tactics here to reach out to parents to say, you know, bring your kids to us because you want to prepare them for everything, comparing it to like a life and death situation. How do you see that as reaching out to customers?
This is a classical case where organizations think that, you know, I'm engaging a customer, and they forget that you're looking at a customer from a company's point of view. Don't forget, the customer is the compass. So in this advertisement, I'm sure with all good intent that it was desired to evoke a response of urgency because education is important. But if you haven't got the customer focus and you haven't really experienced that real dialogue in the customer, then honestly, the product, the differentiation, it's all still in your head, in the company's head. Businesses need to go out there and, you know, they need to capitalize on the dialogue with the customer. The customer's in front of you. Leave no stones unturned when you handle the dialogue to uncover what drives the customer's motivation to buy.
At the end of the day, we are dealing with human beings as well, aren't we?
Yeah,
so got to take all that into account.
A bit of a human touch needed as well.
Very much so.
Thank you very much for coming in this morning.